So after the first 2 days of legal tampering and the first full day of free agency, the 2024 NFL season has officially kicked off. And how did the New York Jets do? They did make some moves, some good, some a little questionable. But I'm going to give you my grade on where I feel they stand so far right now. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Hangout Spot where you already know it's Real Talk Sports Talk, live from my man cave. It's your boy, Johnny, and let's talk Jets. Because after a quiet first day of legal tampering, at least during the day, where Jet fans were questioning, where the hell is Joe Douglas? Is he asleep? Is he awake? Did somebody forget to tell him that legal tampering started on Monday? All day long, Jet fans were just going absolutely insane on social media. And then in the evening, apparently he finally woke up from his nap. And he ended up nabbing the guard from the Baltimore Ravens, John Simpson, which I thought was a solid pickup. And then the dominoes started to roll from there. And right now, if I had to give them a grade on where they stand, technically it would be an incomplete because there's still plenty of free agency left, plenty of players out there. So the Jets do have time to make some more moves, and I would expect that they do. But if I had to give them a grade right now, I'd probably give them a solid C, maybe even a C+. And the reason why is because they did make some moves to address some positions of need, especially on the offensive line. I think John Simpson was a solid signing. He is a guard that's known as a very physical player, a mauler, a guy that's going to excel in the running game. So if you're Breece Hall, you got to be happy about that. Doesn't give up a lot of quarterback sacks. In fact, when I read up on him Monday evening, there was a stretch of over 1,100 snaps where he only gave up one sack. So that's super impressive. He's 26 years old, 6'4", 330 pounds. The biggest knock on him is that he has a tendency to be a penalty machine. Lots of holdings. So you wonder, is that the reason why he hasn't given up a lot of sacks? Who knows? But I do like the pickup. He is a former Baltimore Raven, and anytime that you can get a player from that type of a team, you jump all over it. And apparently that wasn't the only player that they picked up. Today they actually made a trade to bring back Morgan Moses. And I think that's a solid move. You know, the Jets are trying to address the offensive line. Now, it wasn't any of the big names that we all thought that they were going to go after before free agency started. I mean, no Mike Owenu's, but still, you know, solid moves by Joe Douglas. I give him credit. You know, two solid players, and more importantly, two guys that fit a position of need. We all know that this offensive line needs to be revamped. I think that's a good step in the right direction, but we got to keep going. There's some more guys out there. We'll talk about that in a second. But on the screen right now, I'm going to put a list of some of the other players that they ended up picking up over the last few days. No surprise that they ended up picking a couple of players out of the 49er pool, especially since that's where Robert Saleh comes from. Isaiah Oliver, the cornerback, they picked him up, or actually signed him early in the week. And they also brought in Javon Kinlaw, the defensive lineman, at 1 year, $7.25 million. That was one that I questioned in the beginning, but he is a former first-round pick who did play for Saleh a few years back. And we all know the Jets have an infatuation with guys on the defensive line. They like to have an excess of guys so that they can switch them in and out throughout the course of the game and keep them fresh. So although I questioned it at first, then when it kind of sunk in, it made a little bit of sense. They picked up another defensive line guy, Leki Fotu, from the Arizona Cardinals. I questioned that. But again, the more the better. They are losing potentially a couple of other guys. Solomon Thomas still has not been signed, more than likely. With Kinlaw coming aboard, they're going to allow him to walk. But the good news is they brought back both of our kickers, and I thought that was a big deal because I kid around all the time and I say they were probably our co-MVPs last year because they were our most consistent players on offense. Greg Zuerlein, Thomas Morstead, they're both coming back on 2-year deals. I thought that was key. Definitely guys that you did not want to let walk because they were so reliable and good at what they did last year. But besides John Simpson, I think it was about less than an hour after that on Monday evening when they announced on social media that the Jets were signing Tyrod Taylor. And I thought that was a good move because I said on a video a few weeks ago that he was one of my top 5 targets because realistically, I thought that he would come on the cheap. I didn't think that the Jets would look to overspend at that position, and obviously they didn't want to. And when he's healthy, I like what he brings to the table. He's a veteran leader. He's been around. His best seasons, obviously, were with the Bills last year with the Giants. He did show flashes when he was in there. My biggest concern with Tyrod Taylor is everybody's concern. I mean, his injury history. But, he does still throw a nice deep ball. He doesn't turn the ball over, manages an offense well, and players in the locker room love him. And at the end of the day, he's insurance. He's insurance just in case something happens to Aaron Rodgers. Or if Aaron Rodgers needs a game off because he's banged up, or maybe he does get banged up enough where he's going to miss a couple of games. You're hoping that's the worst case scenario. I think Tyrod Taylor can come in there and give our team a chance to win. Problem is, if you have to go out there and count on him for anything more than 4 or 5 games, good luck with that. But nonetheless, I like the pickup. They also re-signed Chuck Clark, the safety from the Ravens that we picked up last offseason, who ended up getting hurt before the season started. I think that was the right thing to do. If he's healthy, he fits the scheme. He's a veteran leader. And right now, currently we're thin at that position. With Tony Adams and him, who knows what's going to happen with Ashton Davis. I'm thinking they probably try to bring him back because they love themselves some Ashton Davis, but he's not back yet. And today we lost Jordan Whitehead. He went back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think bringing Chuck Clark back was really, really good. They also re-signed tight end Kenny Yeboah to put some depth into the tight end room. He was a restricted free agent, and he was pretty decent, or he has been pretty decent on the limited amount of time that we've seen him out there. We did end up losing Bryce Huff as expected. So I wasn't so hurt about it because I kind of saw the writing on the wall, but it's one of those things that when it happens, that's when you really feel the effect. He ended up getting big money from the Eagles, and good for him. Congratulations. I think he definitely deserved to get that payday. I'm sure he's going to get more playing time as an every down defensive end. So who knows what type of sack numbers he can put up. He's in his prime. But, it's going to suck not seeing him in a Jet uniform, not seeing him do his celebration, after a sack. But now it's time for Will McDonald to step up. This is his time to shine. Jermaine Johnson has to continue to perform and get better and better. They could be okay, but they got to make sure that they stay healthy. Because if something were to happen to Jermaine Johnson, then there's going to be some serious concerns at that position. The biggest disappointment for me was not picking up a second wide receiver. And I think that's where so far, and again, there's still some moves that could be made. Some may be more unlikely than others. But this is where I think Joe Douglas so far has dropped the ball. But realistically, he could always call the Bengals and see if he can pry T. Higgins away from them. I mean, T. Higgins made it very, very clear early on in the week that he's not happy with the Bengals, and he demanded a trade because he was disappointed they didn't give him an extension. Instead, they franchised him. So is that something Douglas may, consider? Highly unlikely. I wish, but highly unlikely. We all know how Joe Douglas treats draft picks, and I think this guy, more than likely, the Bengals are going to try to get a haul for this kid. Not to mention that if you do bring him aboard, you're going to have to pay this guy an extension. And these guys, they're getting paid big money. I mean, if there's any indication of what happened over the last 24 hours, Calvin Ridley, another guy that I thought would be on the Jets' radar. I mean, the Titans signed him for big money, over $23 million a season for a guy that's projected to be a number 2 here. I mean, that's just a lot of money. Not surprised because, again, this is what the market is dictating right now. But I need somebody that I feel comfortable with in the event that Garrett Wilson goes down. There's nobody on this roster right now that can step in and be a number 1 receiver. Not Lazard, not Xavier Gibson, not Brownlee. Those 2 guys, they have promise, but they're just going into their second season. They need to find themselves and get better and better. We need somebody out there that we can slide in. But look at what's out there now. I mean, Hollywood Brown is available, a small receiver, but a guy that can stretch the field. He does have speed. You got Tyler Boyd, Curtis Samuel, MVS. And I laugh when I say that because just like any other Jet fan, I don't want that guy here. But we all know who he used to play for and who he used to play with. So if Rodgers wants him, we will probably end up picking him up. Don't know if that's the right move, but that's what the Jets do now. They defer to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, look at David Bakhtiari. Rumors are, everybody's putting their money that he's going to be a Jet. Why? Because of who he played for and who he played with. So that wouldn't surprise me a bit if we start seeing some rumors about MVS. Odell's out there, albeit over the hill. Again, there was some ties with him and the Jets last year, so who knows what they do there. But the Jets got to do something. And then offensive line, I still think that we need to sign at least one more guy, especially if we're looking to draft the best available tackle at number 10. And now, depending on what goes on the rest of the couple of days, I don't even know if that's going to be a sure lock. So, Tyron Smith is still out there. You got Trent Brown, Cam Fleming. If they're looking for another guard, Kevin Seitler is out there. He's the best one out there available. But I don't know. What do the Jets do at number 10, man? Do they stick to their plans and take a tackle? Don't know. Olu Fashanu, if he's going to be there, I think the Jets, should and would pounce on him. Fugaza, if he drops there, he's been linked to them. But what if they decide to go, instead of the wide receiver route, and pick up the tight end Bowers, who's high on everybody's list? I don't know if he'll be there at 10, but if he is, it'd be interesting to see if the Jets go there. Do we pick him up and kind of work him into the offense like a wide receiver? I don't know. That could be an option. And that's the biggest mystery. And that's why I don't really like to talk about the draft until after free agency, after I see everything that the Jets have done. Then we'll get more of a realistic picture of what they could potentially do in the draft. A lot can change from today, to the week before the draft, which is the last week in April. So we'll get into more talk about that. But anyhow, let me know your thoughts in the comment section about how you feel about these moves the Jets made. And as always, if you're new to watching my videos, please subscribe. This is how we do it up at the Hangout Spot. Make sure you're along for the ride. And as always, I appreciate you watching and I appreciate your support. This is your boy Johnny signing out from the Hangout Spot, and I'll talk to everybody soon.